The studio is dimly lit, the air thick with tension. The camera zooms in on the host, a seasoned commentator known for his sharp and often ruthless questioning. Across from him, Usha Vance sits poised, an enigmatic smile playing at her lips. She knows what's coming. The game has begun. The audience murmurs in anticipation. The host adjusts his tie, the air thick with expectation. Tonight's interview has been hyped as a defining moment, an intellectual showdown. But Usha, composed and unreadable, refuses to let the weight of expectations dictate her demeanor. The stage is set, and the air is thick with unspoken anticipation. The audience, both in the studio and watching at home, leans forward. The host, known for his relentless questioning, smirks as he prepares to strike. Host, leaning in, smirking. Usha, do you ever regret marrying J.D. Vance? A hush falls over the audience. The question hangs in the air like a blade waiting to drop. The host expects hesitation, a flicker of discomfort, perhaps even a nervous chuckle. But Usha merely tilts her head, studying him. Usha, calmly, deliberately. Regret? She lets the word settle, like an expert chess player contemplating her next move. The host shifts, sensing something is off. He had expected an easy win, but Usha isn't taking the bait. Usha, you ask that question like you already know the answer. Tell me, why do you assume I would? Host, clearing throat, recovering quickly. Well, given some of your husband's more controversial positions, one might assume... Usha, interrupting, voice smooth as silk. Ah, one might assume. And yet one might also assume you have never asked a male politician's spouse the same question. Have you? A ripple of reaction spreads through the audience. The host blinks. He wasn't expecting this. The tension builds as the host fumbles for a counter. Usha remains unwavering. She has taken the offensive without raising her voice, without even shifting in her seat. The audience leans in, caught in the weight of the exchange. Host. Well, I think... Usha. Do you? Because it seems to me that the real question here isn't about my marriage. It's about something else entirely. She leans forward, locking eyes with him. The host suddenly feels like he's the one on the hot seat. The studio feels smaller, the host's usual dominance over his interviews slipping. He clears his throat, shifting in his seat. Host. All right, let's be clear. You are in a unique position. You are not just a private individual. You are married to a political figure, and people will always scrutinize your choices. Isn't that fair? Usha. Fair? Scrutiny is one thing, but there's a difference between genuine inquiry and targeted assumptions based on gender. Host. So, you're saying it's unfair for the public to question your views because of your husband's position? Usha. I'm saying that questions should be framed with the same level of neutrality for both men and women. Do you think my husband is asked whether he regrets marrying me? Host, shifting slightly. That's different. He's the politician. Usha. And I am a person with my own views, yet here we are. The host frowns slightly, but before he can respond, Usha continues. Usha. Let's try something, shall we? If I were the public figure and J.D. were sitting in this seat, would you be questioning his marriage, or would you be asking about his career, his contributions, his opinions? A long pause. The host doesn't answer immediately, but the silence speaks volumes. Usha leans back, her point made. Usha. Tell me, if Michelle Obama had been asked if she regretted marrying Barack because of his policies, would you consider that a fair question? The host hesitates, but Usha doesn't give him an opening. Usha? Or is this scrutiny reserved only for women whose husbands don't align with your ideals? The audience murmurs, some nodding, others whispering. The host tries to regain control. Host, chuckling nervously. Now, Usha, I was merely giving you the opportunity to address public curiosity. USHA, smiling, unfazed. Curiosity? Interesting word. It implies an open-ended inquiry rather than a carefully crafted trap. But let's be honest, this wasn't curiosity. It was a test, and I'm afraid you just failed it. A stunned silence follows. The host stares at her, momentarily at a loss for words. A few audience members clap quietly, the tension mounting. The tension lingers, and the host struggled to maintain control. He quickly moves to another question. Host. What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about you? Usha, considering briefly. That I exist in my husband's shadow, that I am merely an extension of him rather than an individual with my own convictions, ambitions, and achievements. The audience listens intently. Host. Do you think people will ever separate you from JD's identity? Usha. Only if they choose to. But the more interesting question is, why do they struggle to? Host. Let's cut to the chase. Some critics claim you married JD for status and political clout. How do you respond to that? Audible gasps from the audience. Usha exhales softly but doesn't flinch. Usha, calmly. Would you ask a male political spouse the same question? Or is ambition only suspicious when it belongs to a woman? Host. I'm just saying people talk. Usha. Yes, people do talk. And yet the assumptions they make often say more about them than about me. The audience murmurs in agreement. The host shifts uncomfortably. Usha. I didn't marry JD for politics, just like I didn't study law for applause. My choices have always been my own. But I do wonder, why does a woman's success always have to be attached to someone else's name? The host has no comeback. The crowd erupts into applause. Usha leans back, victorious. The camera lingers on the host's face, the realization dawning that he has underestimated his guest. Usha Vance is not just answering questions, she's dismantling the premise of the conversation itself.